everyone. My name is Angie Peacock. I'm a psychiatric drug withdrawal consultant and a healing coach. I like to bring you conversations of people that are important to me or just topics that interest me that kind of intersect with coming off of psych drugs. If you are on YouTube right now watching, please give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps grow the channel and helps other people see this because that's how YouTube works. This is Matt. I'm bringing you Matt this morning.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. So let me read his bio really quick and then we'll jump right into it because we only have 1 hour. So Matt, how do I say your last name?
Marín.
Marin. Matt Marín is a Los Angeles-based hypnotherapist, artist, and activist. His psychiatric withdrawal journey began at the age of 17, and he is currently healing from protracted withdrawal. Matt is passionate about helping people injured by psychiatric medications and aims to help shift society's understanding of mental wellness through his hypnotherapy practice, YouTube channel, and artistry. He plans on opening a coaching practice when healed from protracted withdrawal, and you can learn more about him at othersidehypno.com. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. And thank you guys for joining.
So let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
Share as much or as little as you want, but tell us like what brought you to psych drugs, what brought you into the mental health system, and sort of what that was like for you. Like, what was your experience?
Yeah. So my journey, I'll kind of give the broad strokes overview of everything to start. My journey with all of this started at 17. I was going through a lot of anxiety and some depressive spells and just having a hard time coping. And I started with a low dose of Prozac. I don't remember a lot about the beginning of it, but I don't think it really did a whole lot for me, either way, negative or positive. And as the years went on, it kind of became the story that so many of us go through, where I just kind of got turned through the system and put on so many different things and taken off things and switched to other things and, adding stuff in, taking stuff away. You kind of become a little bit of like an experiment, it feels like. And so, yeah, I was on many different drugs over the years. And about 6 years in, I kind of had this moment of like, when am I ever going to be done with this? Because in the beginning of all of it, I wanted it to be short. I didn't even really want to go on them in the first place. And I wanted it to be a short-lived thing. And I was told it would be, a year or a year and a half to retrain my brain or whatever it was. And that would be it. And 6 years in, I just kind of was like, when are we going to form a plan to get me off of these? Because it's not happening. And, I remember it never being a good time. And like any doctor I worked with was always saying, it's not the right time. You're starting this job or you're starting this school or whatever. And I kind of ultimately decided it's never going to be a good time. Life is always going to be happening. So I need to start doing this. And 6 years in, I cold turkeyed off of Klonopin at the instruction of my doctor, which I would highly advise against never cold turkeying off of any of this stuff, because I was told it was a small enough dose to do that. If you ask me, no dose is small enough to cold turkey. And that's when the withdrawal of it all began. And I went through really severe withdrawals upon coming off of Klonopin, and I simultaneously began tapering off of Prozac, and I was on a ton of that. So that took a really long time. I think I tapered it for 15 months, and I thought I was going slow enough, but it was really brutal. Anytime I tried to make a little cut, it just gave me a whole slew of symptoms, and I would have to wait 2 or 3 weeks between cuts, which I thought was long enough, and that's actually pretty fast. And then I would taper more. And I was really determined to do it quickly because I thought that if once I got it done, I thought once the drug is out of me, then everything will be okay. And I had never heard of protracted withdrawal or any of this. I didn't know about any of this world until it happened to me. So That is kind of my central goal in my speaking out about this, and my channel and everything I'm doing with this is I feel a really deep responsibility to make people aware of what can happen with these meds, and what does happen to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I got off of everything actually 3 years ago tomorrow. So tomorrow is my 3 year off of Prozac, and it's been longer, much longer than that since Klonopin, but 3 years of being completely off of all psychiatric medications. So that's big for me. But what I do want to say, last thing, and then I'll go back to you.
Yeah.
The last thing I just want to put out there about like the general overview of all of this is that some of you, like, I think a lot of people will hear 3 years off and still going through symptoms and be really afraid. And I remember in the beginning and middle and all throughout my journey, hearing people, when I was a year and a half off or 2 years off, and hearing people talk about being injured for however long, it really threw me for a loop, and it really caused a lot of panic. And what I'll say about that is, first of all, everybody's journey is wildly different. There are a lot of parallels, but there are a lot of differences as well. And everybody heals in a different point. Everyone heals at a different time, and it could be really short for you. It could be longer. It doesn't, like, it's your journey. And I believe there are several factors that made mine longer. And so that doesn't, like, I just don't want to scare anybody with like 3 years off.
Right.
Because there were so many things that I believe caused a lot of setbacks for me, things that I was not educated about. And yeah, like, I've been on multiple courses of antibiotics since getting off these drugs. I was on naltrexone for a year and a half of this process, and I had a horrible time coming off of it. And that I only got off of that a little over a year ago. And that could be causing some healing as well. And there were just a lot of different things about my journey that I believe extended it a lot. So please know that, and know that there's no reason that your journey is going to be anywhere near as long as mine.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah. So I know a lot about your story, and as you were telling it, I was thinking to myself, you were like me, where you had all these little glimpses while you were on meds, or while you were in and out of a hospital, or while you were in treatment, or while you were in the therapy, blah, 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 blah. You just get these little intuitions or little glimpses of like the crack, and the light starts coming in. Can you share a few of those, like while you were taking meds?
Yeah. So yeah, the way I look at my whole journey with this is I see it as a massive catalyst or vehicle through which my own like spiritual kind of awakening has happened. And yeah, it's really cracked me open in that way. And it began before I started to come off the drugs. I was once I maxed out on Prozac, I started going into inner dose withdrawal and having horrible symptoms. And it was at that point I was so sick already. The first thing to really go was my gut got really, really bad once I was in inner dose withdrawal. And once that happened, I was so sick and so just like I felt like a ghost. Like I felt like I couldn't feel the world, and I felt removed from everything. I would dissociate constantly, really, really intensely, to the point where I felt like I didn't have a body. And that had never, ever happened to me before taking these drugs, ever in my life. And that really started to scare me. And I just had this gut feeling, this intuition that these meds were kind of messing with me. And nobody validated that, but I felt that deep inside of me. And that's one thing I would really say is a gift that has come out of this is it's taught me to trust my intuition so much. Because I didn't listen to that in the first place, and that's kind of what's got me into the whole thing. And now I really listen to that guiding voice inside of me. And it was at the beginning, before I started to taper or came off of Klonopin or anything, I had this night where I was having a lot of, I don't want to say anything too like triggering, but I was just really in the darkest place of it. And I did not want to be around. And I was really done. I was at completely past the end of my rope. And I remember being in my kitchen, sitting on the floor, just crying my eyes out, and nobody was home. And I had this like moment where it felt like something came into the room and spoke to me. I didn't see anything, and it wasn't like I was hearing it. It was something else, something different. But it was like everything went away, and this voice kind of spoke inside of me, and I heard it in my mind clearly. And it said, everything you've been wanting to heal from, and all of the blocks, all of the insecurities, everything you want to move past and heal from, you feel blocked from all of it, and you will not be able to really work on that stuff until you get off of these meds. And first of all, that's not true for everyone. I'm not like telling anybody what to do.
No. That is your experience. Yeah.
This is my experience. I felt really blocked from processing that stuff by being on that much medication. And so I decided then to get off of it, and that's what prompted I wanted to get off of Klonopin first because I thought it was small enough, and the taper off of the huge amount of Prozac I was on was really daunting. So that's what started it. That's what kicked it off, was this kind of feeling of guidance, telling me that that's what I needed to do. And then throughout the whole process of tapering and staying off of these meds, yeah, I mean, I don't know where to begin, because
there's a lot. I'm thinking back to like that time you told me about where some doctor told you something and you just had this little seed of doubt, and you remember saying to yourself, like, that doesn't even make sense. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
that
totally.
moment. Can you share that real quick? Yeah.
Sure. When I was 17, in the psychiatrist's office for the first time, first of all, I understand what led me there. I'm not like saying I'm totally blameless.
You're perfect.
Like I was not doing well. Like it was not like my life was great and I just got thrown on meds. I went on them for a reason. But I remember going to that first appointment and sitting there as he described to me the way that these drugs worked. And as I was sitting in the office, I had this moment where I was like thinking about this one time when I was a little kid, and I asked my mom about Advil because I used to get headaches. I still get headaches somewhat often. And when I was a kid, anytime I got a headache, I would just take Advil or Excedrin or whatever, and it would be gone. Luckily, those things worked for me. But I asked her as a little kid, I was like, Mom, when you take Advil, how does it know where to go? She's like, I don't know what you mean. And I said, it knows where the headache is, right? Because it's so small. Like that little bit of something can't possibly get through your whole body. Like your body's big and it's tiny. So how does it know where the pain is? And she's like, no, it's really concentrated, and it does. It goes through your whole blood system, your whole circulatory system, into all parts of your body, and it kind of blanket covers everything. And so it knocks out pain wherever it is. And I kind of had the same moment in the office where he's describing it to me. He's like, oh, these drugs work by da da da. Like it almost sounded like, I remember listening to it and being like, this doesn't sound real. Like it sounds like made up a little bit. He was like, yeah, these drugs know what parts of your brain need to, be recalibrated or whatever. And so they go in and balance out your neurotransmitters and wherever your brain needs help. I was like, how? Like, how is that possible? Like it's not like these
Smart
are
moms. Yeah.
they're not like sentient little beings. Like, how does it know where to go? Like, how does it know what part of your brain needs help? And the answer, unfortunately, is they don't. Like they hit your whole nervous system. It's like throwing a chemical blanket on your entire system.
Yeah.
So that's why, in my opinion, I'm not like a doctor or a scientist, but just the basic knowledge I have about how the body works, like how could it possibly target one little area? And anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was that moment. And that's what I'm talking about. Like earlier when I mentioned that intuition, everybody's got that. You've got that, everybody has this guiding voice inside of them. And it's really hard to distinguish a lot of the time, but like that's what I feel is a gift that I've gotten through this horrible process, is that now I can hear it more clearly and I can discern between thoughts and that more accurately. But it takes a long time. I mean, it took a lot of practice for me to learn how to really listen to that and hone in on that. So
To
yeah.
like trust yourself. I mean, I think psychiatry, psychology, even therapy, it's turned me into like this neurotic, self-doubting, constantly scanning for issues, like, oh my God, I shouldn't be thinking that, or who do I need to tell and talk about? Where it's like, no, you know what to do, Angie. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your thinking. You are reacting to what's happening. It's like a total reversal.
Yeah, I think that like broad scope here, I think what's happened in a lot of areas of the world is this like disempowerment of people. That's what I'm noticing in a lot of areas of the world right now is like we have been in many ways by the society that we live in. I feel that we've been kind of trained out of trusting ourselves and honestly nature. And yeah, it feels like so many things are steering us away and kind of putting this veil between us and our true power is the way I feel. I think that we are powerful beyond our imaginations, and that's like if we're talking about the spirituality of it all, I think that this is like the next step in human evolution is owning that power and learning about it, because it's, I don't know, I think it happens slower than we want it to, but it's happening in like a cosmic sense. It's happening really fast right now. People are waking up left and right to all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on in the world. And unfortunately, I again, one man's opinion, but I think that our medical system has kind of trained us to not trust our own bodies and our power, and that's such a multifaceted thing. Like that whole topic in and of itself could be a day-long conversation, but yeah, it's I don't know where I'm going.
No, it's good. I'm thinking back to last week. I did an interview with a woman named Kyra Fanlow, and she was medicated as a teenager, just like you. She went through therapeutic boarding schools and wilderness camps, and her mentorship business is called Homing Instinct. And I asked her toward the end of the interview, I was like, why did you call it that? Like, and she was like, it's like we lose our way and then we have to go back home. And I started bawling because I was like, that's my clients. Like, we are told all this story about ourselves. We are given all these meds. We can't trust ourselves. Now you have a disease. You're powerless over it. You're going to have to take these meds for the rest of your life. but that intuition keeps knocking, like, wait a minute, something's wrong. And when I ask people, I asked you when I first started talking with you, why are you doing this? What is it that you hope to be on the other side of it? That's you returning home. Like, and so that's kind of the process. It's really terrifying. And I feel like I wish it would have happened another way, but here we are. And that kind of brings us to meaning. We'll start talking about that in a second, but it's like you think these things about yourself. You believe others' opinions of you. You stop trusting yourself. You doubt everything. And you just become this kind of learned helplessness, like, just trust the expert kind of person. And then one way or another, you're going to figure out there is no expert and I'm going to have to do this. And I don't even know, you're going into this dark cave with no light, no flashlight, and you don't know what's going to happen. And none of us know what's going to be pre-existing that shows up when we're done, or who we're going to be on the end of this process. Nobody knows that. And it breeds so much fear and anxiety and just makes our brains just ultra imaginative of all the worst case scenarios. So yeah, talk about that really quick, like walking in the dark.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, there were a couple of things you said that I want to touch on. The first thing is, it's like at the beginning of what you were just saying, you mentioned like kind of getting labeled with all of these things and becoming like powerless to these diagnoses, right? I want to touch on that for a second, because one thing that always, that gut feeling I talked about, that gut feeling would always scream at me. Like the loudest it ever got was when I would get diagnosed with something based on whatever I was going through. And this happened multiple times throughout the journey. I remember the day I got diagnosed as borderline personality disorder. And I was, first of all, I was having horrible side effects from the medications. I will say that. And because of those side effects, the way that they diagnosed me was I answered a 9-question long questionnaire. And then I had a disease at the end of that. Like I answered yes or no to 9 questions and then was labeled as having a disorder. And I remember the feeling of like, how can you diagnose me with something based on what I am saying? Like, it's crazy to me. And here's the thing, I'm not an expert on all of this. I do not claim to be, but when it comes to like, I think everybody's case is different. Are there some cases that may need medication? I don't know. That's not me. I have no jurisdiction there. But what I can say is there are so many things out there that are being labeled as disease that are human experiences. These are human things you're going through. If you are having a horrible time with anxiety, it doesn't mean you have an anxiety disorder. It means something's going on in your life that is causing that. It's a response, and it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. Do I think that there are chemical things that can happen to create that? Yes, I do. Do I think that that means that everybody has some brain imbalance that needs corrective, therapy through these types of chemicals? No, I do not. I very firmly believe in a lot of natural remedies to these kinds of things, but anyway, that's a tangent. But that's the first thing I want to say is like, don't try to not let the world or this system pathologize the way you feel, because, and again, I understand that these things are hard. They're brutal. Like I can speak from experience. I've been through hell. Like life can be completely unimaginably hard. But I don't think that the answer lies in demonizing or diseasifying human experience. So that's the first thing I want to say. In terms of the meaning of it all,
well, say something about home, like, giving up your power, returning home. I guess that relates to meaning, but yeah.
What I'll say about that is I was really young when this started. I was not the youngest that I've heard of people starting this journey, sadly. I know personally a lot of people who have been put on these drugs as literal children before the age of 10 even. And their whole body chemistry adapted and grew and formed under the influence of these types of medications. So I was on the younger side though, and I was still, in my formative years, which I kind of still feel like I am. But because of that, what I feel personally, and this is not true for everyone, but what I feel personally happened for me when I started this journey is I feel like in many ways it froze me in time as a 17-year-old. I still feel like I'm a teenager in so many ways. I still feel like I'm running around the world, and it's like that first level of a video game where you don't know the controls and you're in the tutorial and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like
Exactly.
I feel like that. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what your 20s are like in general, from what I've heard from everybody older than me. But I feel like it's really amplified, and on a little different of a level for me. I do, yeah, I feel like in so many ways I got stunted in time as this teenager. And then in so many other ways, I feel like an 80-year-old man that looks around at people a year or two younger than me and is like, I remember when it's like, it's like, and that I kind of have to laugh at myself for that sometimes, because I'm like, I'm not as old as I feel inside.
Right. Yeah.
But it is this really strange split, I don't I feel simultaneously ancient and like a baby. And in terms of all of that, what I feel like I've really started to do, the part of my journey that I'm in now, is I feel like over the past few months,
part of my journey that I'm in. Sorry, that was me trying to share it. I'm so sorry. Start over. Sorry.
No, it's fine. The part that started a few months ago, of my process with all this, is I feel like I'm starting to learn who I am. Like, I feel like I'm starting to feel my identity forming in many ways. Because I remember for the first, it really still today, but especially the first 2.5 years of this, I was like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I like or want or need. I don't know what kind of clothes I want to wear, or how, do I care about my appearance, or in terms of aesthetically, yes, I care about my appearance. It's a problem a lot, but I'm talking the way I style myself. Am I that person who's doesn't want to leave the house without tons of accessories and makeup and hair just the right way? Because I live in a major city, and there's a lot of people like that who are look like they're styled for a photo shoot all the time. Or am I more of the, boho, I wear my hair however it is when I get out of bed, and just wear my athleisure or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of style, I don't know who I am in that regard. I don't know. I know what kind of music I like more, but I don't really know how I relate to the world in so many different ways. I don't know so many things about myself, and I feel like I remember feeling like I was trying to figure that out the whole time I was on the meds. And that's one of the things that kind of guidance moment I talked about, was referring to. It was like, you feel so blocked from all of this stuff. You feel so removed from your very self that and you're not going to work through that until you are not a ghost. You know what I mean? I felt so much of my time on those meds, I just felt like I was in this fog, and so detached and removed from everything around me. It was this really bizarre feeling of like I was stuck somewhere deep inside of my own body, and I couldn't really connect or feel the world around me. Like,
Mhm.
and it's indescribable. It's the best way I can speak it, but it's really hard to enunciate because it's a
Well, I think that's how we say that drugs work, is that this is just my experience. You tell me what you think. But it happens so slowly, it's almost imperceptible, where you slowly lose touch with who you are
yeah,
and you become a ghost of yourself, kind of like what you said, to where I'm like, when I look back on all those years that I was medicated, I'm like, what did I do every day? Where did I spend my money? Like, what did I do? I don't even remember. I know I didn't engage with friends. I know I didn't like have a partner or have kids or like, what was I doing? I don't even know. But I definitely wasn't like getting to know myself. And I think the drugs, that's how they worked, is that I did not care. I
yeah,
didn't care about my problems. I didn't care about my social relationships, my family relationships. I didn't care about finding a partner. I didn't care about getting to know myself or hobbies or what do I like in the world. So when you come off, you're like, oh my God, who am I? I have no idea.
exactly. Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. I just felt like I was like a jellyfish, like floating and just being carried around, like
Yeah.
just going with the tide and not in like a laid
A good
back,
way.
like
Yeah.
happy go lucky way, like
No.
a jellyfish caught in a storm,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was terrible. It felt, it felt like it stole my humanity. Like it felt like it sucked that right out of me. Like I felt like a Dementor had like pulled my soul out. Like
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
was like it
You're
was
reminding me of a quote from Peter Gurcha. He's a Danish doctor who founded Cochrane Collaboration. He's in the film Medicaid Normal, but he says psychiatric drugs take away everything it means to be human. And
yeah,
that has always kind of stuck with me. Like you're not in touch with your emotion, you're not feeling deeply and widely. You know what I mean? You're just kind of numb, but that's what we call work. They work. They
yeah.
sure do. I don't care about anything, you know? That
They
was
just
my experience.
they just cut you off from what you're feeling that you don't want to be feeling. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, like based on all of that, I get it. Again, I went on these drugs. I was on them for 7.5 years. I get it. Like, I'm not trying to
Yeah, we're not shaming
in any way
anyone.
like
No,
shame or
some people I've shared the story before, but I met someone who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and she stood up in an audience at Medicaid Normal. We were in Boston. I'll never forget this, 3 years ago, and she said, "You don't understand. I have had so much trauma in my life. I have to take these drugs in order not to think about it, or I will kill myself." And
yeah,
that is the effect that she wants, and that's her choice. And God love her. I get it. There was a time when I felt like that. Like I just can't feel anything. I don't want to feel anything. That's You're right. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it's also your right, if you choose so, to explore what is it like to be off. I want to know. I'm curious. Who am I beneath this? Yeah.
exactly. And
There's
like
no
I'm
shame.
not
There's no shame. Yeah.
no, there's no shame and there's like that ultimately is the way I look at the I think there's a light and a dark side to everything. And the way I see psych meds, for example, and it's a big blanket way of talking about a thing like a system with a lot of complexities and there's so many different drugs and like I can't speak for everything, but in general, like the way I look at psych meds and the way there is a light side to even that. They've put, and that's coming from someone who has been put through
Yeah.
torture from them. I can still acknowledge like there's a light side to psychiatric medication, and there are instances where I wouldn't I don't I have to choose my words right here, but like I would never encourage or discourage anybody from doing it. You got to make your own decision for what's right for you.
Mhm.
But there are instances where I totally get it. Like I think that if there are appropriate times to go on these meds, it's the way I look at them is they should be used as an intervention. Like they should be used in cases of emergency, break the glass, and here you go. But
Mhm.
what I think is the biggest piece of the puzzle that needs so much reformation in this industry is the way we understand and use these drugs, because we can get into the whole pharma of it all, and that's a longer thing, but these drugs, one way or another, they are highly lucrative and profitable, and that's a real thing. It's not conspiratorial. It's the way the world is.
Yeah.
And it's there's a lot of people out there who have no intention of ever taking people off of these drugs. And so what should be, in my opinion, used as a crisis intervention and monitored super carefully, and then there needs to be a plan in place of how you are going to take somebody off of these drugs and when. That's not there. That system does not exist. That is what we in this community are pioneering, or trying to pioneer right now, is how do we make this system safer? Because it's not really ever going to be completely safe, because the reality is I know people who have taken these drugs once and been injured by them. So it's like, it's never going to be a perfect system, but we can get a lot closer to it being a perfect system than we are now. Like, for example, I remember, another drug I went on during my withdrawal process was Accutane. And, that has, class action lawsuits against it for the past 20 years or so. And you have to literally join a program called iPledge in order to get on the drug. You cannot get that drug without joining this pledge program, in which you watch videos and read and sign things saying you understand the risks associated with the drug. Why does that not exist for these? That's crazy to me. Like, that is what I'm talking about. There needs to be, I am not I echo from so many people who have walked before me in this community. I echo the same message. I am not anti-med. I am pro-informed consent. That's my stance on it, because there are instances where these drugs can be life-saving for people, but they are, in the way I view it, they are not a long-term solution. They are a temporary interventional fix for crisis, basically, is the way I would approach it. And again, that's not going to work for every situation, but I would say the majority of cases out there, that's what I think is appropriate in terms of psych drugs.
Yeah. So this is my favorite. I'm glad we're here, because I think this is my favorite subject to talk to you about, particularly. I withhold ever asking a client, like, what does this experience, how has it changed you? You know what I mean? Or what meaning have you put on it? Why do you think this happened? Like, why? First of all, any why question, and first blame. So I usually don't use the why word, but meaning. And you were the first one I've ever heard say it. Like, let's just be real. You have coped with akathisia for 3 years, on and off, different surges of it. I mean, I have done sessions with you, pacing, walking around your apartment with me on the phone at 8 o'clock at night, and we just talk until you calm down. It has not been pretty. I have lots of clients with akathisia right now that are even watching right now. And even in the depths of your akathisia, you would stop me and say, Angie, even me doing this right now, I know this means something.
Yeah.
And that most people are not there. They don't, and I would never push them there. That is something that you come to on your own terms with your own self, after there's some distance usually, but you're like in the middle of it saying this. So let's talk about that really quick.
I'm gonna get really emotional, because
I know, it's okay.
The worst thing I can imagine. But
yeah.
4 days ago, I was I called out of work and laid on that couch all day, and then got up to pace, and then laid back down, and then got up to pace. Since this injury began, I think I've called out of work. I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I've called out on work. I've been at jobs in akathisia. So if it's that bad, if it's bad enough for me to call out of work, it's the worst it gets. And it was that way 4 days ago. And it still happens sometimes. I will say it does not happen anywhere near as often as it used to. And at this point, I know it so well. I know what I have to do when it happens. I know what my coping thing is, and I now that I've like the metaphor I always use is like it's like it's like this injury is holding you by the ankles underwater, right under the surface, and when you finally get a window, and it took me years to get any, but when you finally get a window, you break the surface and you have confirmation that the surface still exists.
Yeah.
And that is so profound when it happens. I'm so grateful that that's happened, because now that I've breathed the air again, I know it's there. It's not some fantasy, because when you're going through it for so long and not getting any windows, it's like everybody's telling you this story of the other side of a psych med withdrawal, and you're like, is it maybe it's just a fantasy, like you start to not believe it's even possible. And then you get that confirmation, and it for me, it has given me the strength to do it again. And so when it happens again, it doesn't make it any less horrible, but I have that knowledge inside of me now to go, okay, I have to just hold my breath and wait here, and let it happen and surrender to it. And I know that it'll pass. And so if you're in it right now, please hear me from somebody who 150% did not believe it ever was going to pass. It does. And like we talked about in our toxic positivity discussion, you don't have to believe it. Despite what a lot of people out there will tell you, you do not have to believe it. It will still stop. Because if all of that, I'm not saying the law of attraction doesn't exist, but I don't think we understand it super well. And if I were this master manifester and all of my thoughts were creating my entire reality, I would never have slept again. And I never would have, and I get 7-8 hours a night now. And I would still be in it constantly, because I firmly believed and thought over and over and over again, all day, every day, that I was going to be in it forever. So I would have manifested that, and it would still be true, and it's not. So know that it will end. It will stop for you. I know there might be some of you watching this that are in it right now, pacing around watching this on your phone, and it will go away. It just survive it a day at a time. And what I'll say about what you asked me, Angie, is, I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't feel safe, or like it doesn't feel super stable when I've had these moments. Obviously, I'm in akathisia, but like, there have been a lot of moments of, even as I'm pacing around in the worst pain I could ever dream of or imagine, this completely inhuman, impossible feeling in my body, even as that's happening, I've had a lot of moments throughout this journey of saying to myself, if somebody offered me the ability to push a button and completely undo all of this and go back in time and never touch these drugs and erase the whole journey I've been on with them, I would not do it. I would not push that button, and I would not undo any of this. And if you're not there, that's fine. You're being tortured in your body. It's not an easy place to arrive.
No.
But it's I don't feel like I made that happen, or like I don't feel like I'm digging deep to like find that. Like, I'm not saying that's a place that everybody's going to arrive at, or that you have to like make an effort to get there. It just kind of happens, and I think that it's part of my own spiritual journey, for whatever reason, whatever I've been through before this, in other lifetimes or whatever. it has led me to a point where I'm at this point in my process. I'm at this point in my journey. And I because of what I believe and what I feel that I know deep inside about the journey that my consciousness is on, basically, if we don't have to use the word soul, because I feel like that can be a little religious, and I don't want to turn anybody off, but whatever I am outside of my body, I feel has been around for a long time and has gone through a lot of things. And yeah, I just for some reason, even as it's happening, I know that it's leading me somewhere. It's happened. I believe that it's happening for a reason. And I know that it's leading somewhere really beautiful, because I believe that you can only go as high as you've been low, basically. And I feel as low as it possibly gets at this point. I cannot imagine anything more painful than this. And so because of that, like I talked about this in my video about my windows, the first windows I got in Hawaii, and I'm moving there now because I felt so great there. Like I experienced things on that trip that validated that feeling of I wouldn't undo this. I got confirmation. I got like proof, because I felt things while I was there and experienced things on that trip that I was so like not euphoria, because it didn't feel unsafe. It felt real. Like it didn't feel like mania or anything like that. Like it felt like the purest, most genuine connection I've ever felt to everything around me. The complete polar opposite of what I felt while I was on all those meds. Like I talked about, like feeling so cut off and removed from every atom of the world around me, like the energy of the world around me. I felt dead to all of that. And I experienced the exact opposite on this trip that I went on. And I've had moments of it not on the trip as well. But while I was there, it's Kauai, the island that I was on for half of the trip. It's so untouched and remote. It kind of feels like you're going back in time. It feels like prehistoric in a way. Like it's literally, there are a lot of shots in Jurassic Park that are filmed there. Like it feels like the land before time, because they've preserved it so beautifully. And because of that, the natural presence of the earth there, it's so strong and palpable. And I if I had been on all of those drugs, I might not have felt that. But being there, eating clean whole foods and drinking clean water straight out of the spring and the rocks, like doing that, and if I just felt the most connected and grounded to the universe, to the world around me, that I have ever felt in my life. And that, just a moment of that, has made all of this worth it. And yeah, that's all I can really say. It even if I got to experience one day of that at the end of all of this, it would make it all worth it. Also, because I don't believe that I die with this body. I think this is one expression of me, and I will go on to another one. I don't just believe that, I know it inside of me, but I'm not going to like say that. I'm a human being. I don't know anything for sure, but I feel like I know it.
But I just had an interesting analogy when you were talking. I thought it's almost like you were abducted by a UFO and you go to another planet, you're on psych meds, and then you get dropped back on your home planet, back in your body, and then you're like, oh, I'm home, But those moments that you're talking about, I'm telling you, they just get more and more frequent. And now I like live in that more than ever. And I think you and I are a little different, or I'm still not there yet, because I get to watch suffering all day. But I want to let everybody off the hook in the audience. Like, you can go through this experience and think it's hell and torture and it means nothing. And that is absolutely up to you. Okay. Matt is just sharing his
Yeah.
experience and what he's come to, you know? So I would say for me, just so that everybody can hear like a different experience or different meaning on it. But I kept thinking, like, while I was going through it, I was like partly terrified and partly fascinated. Like, I was just so humbled by, I am watching my brain heal right now. I am so, like, everything is connected, and the way I sleep is affects my mood tomorrow. It made me see the whole planet in a more holistic way. It made me appreciate the present moment, because you didn't have a choice. I had to live in the present moment every second, you know, like just 1 second at a time. So I just want to invite everybody, you know, it's your choice. And if you think it means nothing and it was a complete waste of time and it should have never happened, and that's all, that would be, you know, that would be what it is. But yes, I have to say, it's like you live so presently now. And to me, I feel like I don't know if I would have gotten this any other way. I don't think that that means it should have happened, or that I like that it happened, or that it didn't almost cost me my very life.
Yeah.
But I do live deeply and I love more, and I can help people in the depths of suffering, and like you will, because you have been through it. You know what akathisia is, and you
Yeah.
got through it. Yeah.
Yeah,
We are
I completely agree and resonate with everything you said. Like it's like you just said, I don't think there are so many things that have yet to come out of this, but I can see coming out of this
yeah.
already, that I don't personally believe could have happened any other way. You know, the level of gratitude I would feel just to be able to not think about what I'm eating all of the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
when I'm able to eat things that I was not, uh, it's a level of gratitude I'll never be able to express. Like, when I'm able to take certain supplements now that help me a lot with my gut, that I could not take 2 years in. Namely, like, one that I rely on heavily now is peppermint gels. I'm not suggesting any supplements, by the way.
Yeah.
But peppermint, like time release peppermint gels, help me so much with my gut symptoms. They don't make it perfect by any means, but they help a lot. And I couldn't take them for the first 2 years of this because they gave me such horrible acid reflux. And now I can take them, and they just help and they don't hurt. And the gratitude that I feel just to have that is so huge. And then, you know, there's other things too, like the gratitude I have to be able to sleep. I mean, it's not perfect. Again, I still have healing left to do, but I can sleep most nights for many uninterrupted hours. And I remember in the beginning of this, I would go entire nights lying there trying to sleep and being like lying awake in terror, and cortisol, just I could practically feel it coming out of my kidneys, like pouring through my
Yes.
body all night long, and just being desperate for sleep. And that, like, because I've been there now, when I do sleep, I'm like, thank you so much. Like,
Yes.
it's just, yeah, like the level of gratitude that comes out of this for me has been huge. But I will also say, like Angie said, I've also been in a place of fuck this, fuck you, like fuck, like this is bullshit. I don't
Yeah,
want
you
to do
swing between. I mean, I've seen you in those moments.
Yeah. And I have them all the time is the thing. I'm not,
Yeah.
like, they still happen all the time. I had one
Yeah.
yesterday. I was
Yeah.
singing at the sky like a crazy person. Like, you know, I still get it a lot. And there's this show called Severance, that is about, like, basically this implant that, like, severs people. It's a fictional show. Severs people's consciousness between their work life and their personal life. And it's like there's this whole, like, like philosophical debate in the show about, like, you're basically creating a person that didn't consent to doing that, and can never escape, because they want to get out of the thing when they're in their work consciousness, but they're outside. They call it like an innie and an outie. Anyway, what I'm saying is, like, there have been so many times where I think about, like, if I did agree to this, like being out there in some other dimension, like planning to incarnate or whatever, like if I did agree to this at some point and sign up for all of this, like a lot of people say, like I didn't, like this me doesn't remember that, and therefore I'm the innie of like this world, and I technically didn't consent to this. So this is bullshit, like I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Like I revoke my contract. So if that's
Right.
that, I get it. I feel you. It
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
But
Oh gosh. Okay, we are running out of time very, very, very quickly, and I have two more questions I want to get to. So if you can kind of rapid fire the answers. The first question is, when you were in your depths of akathisia, how did you get through it?
I hated hearing this while I was in it. So if you hate me for this, I get it. But it's literally a second at a time. And you do whatever it takes to survive that next second after second. And what I would like, my ultimate piece of advice for all of that is, you do what you have to do. And obviously you have to do it in a safe way, and be mindful of the people around you. But if you need to pace. Like there's a reason people move in this. It does help a little. Like it doesn't take it away, and it feels horrific while it's happening. But for me, it's like whenever I am there, I have to move, and I don't care how it looks. I have literally gotten out of the car and like left a car with my friend driving, and like gone for like a long walk in the middle of Hollywood because I was like, stop the car, I have to get out right now. And I did, and it sucks, but I had to move. Do whatever you have to do is my ultimate piece of advice. Also, freezing cold showers have helped me a lot. Set the water as cold as it'll go, or if you live near the ocean, it's somewhere cold, or a body of water that you can jump in, like cold water. That's not great for everyone, by the way. It can make some people feel worse, but for me, that shocks me out of it sometimes. Not completely out of it, but it helps me calm down some. And every little bit counts when you're in akathisia.
Yes.
So honestly, cold water, pacing. If you
1
have
second
people,
at a time.
if you have people in your life that understand it and support you, like lean on those people and just tell them exactly, like try to be open and vulnerable and honest with them. I know that not everybody's got that, and that I wish everyone did, but I'm here if anybody wants to talk. But like, it's just keep surviving it, whatever you have to do. Experiment with different coping mechanisms, and if you find something that takes it down even a little bit,
Do it.
rely on that, pull on it. Like you got to have your like deck of cards that you pull things from when in case of emergency, so yeah.
Thank you. All right, we did not even get to hypnosis. I feel really bad about that. So I think we're gonna have to do a part 2. I'm sure you don't mind. Let's do a part 2. But tell people, where's your YouTube channel? How can they find you? Tell us about your website really quickly before we get off.
Sure. My YouTube channel is Other Side Wellness. You can find all my videos there. I don't have a ton up yet, but I'm making them. Every once in a while I make a video. So definitely subscribe there, watch. It's just me talking about what I've learned through this. So there's that. And in terms of the hypnotherapy stuff, I am a certified hypnotherapist. I believe it can help with certain things, certain aspects of this journey. And then outside of this injury, I think it's amazing what it can do. But we can talk more about that another time. But I do offer hypnotherapy. My website is othersidehypno.com. And Yeah.
Love
I
it. Thank you.
thank you guys for joining and listening. And thank you, Angie, for having me.
Of course. And last thing, I always like to end on hope. So when I think of you, Matt, I think of you just climbed this mountain and now you're descending. So I always think like the worst is behind you. And you might not feel like that, but that's what I see as somebody who's watched you unfold and watched you grow, and despite the horror of this experience. So what do you have to say to hope to people listening?
Um, I mean, it's there, whether you feel it or not. It's there. It's like I talked about being held under the water. Like, and if you can't feel it, that's fine. And just survive those times and get through them, because it's still there, even when you don't feel it. You will get through it, even when every cell of your body is telling you you will not. So please keep going. Please, like, you owe it. What I keep telling people lately is you owe it to yourself to see the other side of this. You deserve, with what you're going through and what you've been through in this, you deserve to get to the other side and see the rewards. So please keep going and live to see that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you everybody for watching. Matt, go back and read the comments because there's tons of praise for you. Everybody loves you. And they're like, he's so inspirational. He's so awesome.
Well,
So thank you for
I do this is for the praise. So
yeah, right. Not exactly. No, not at all. But anyway, thank you so much everybody for joining. This is recorded and it will be up on YouTube later. And again, if you can, go to the YouTube channel, including Matt's, and just hit subscribe and like. It really does help people see it more. Again, and thank you so much for watching. And on May 26th, which is in 3 days, we have Joseph Witt-During. He's a doctor who helps deprescribe people that need to come off meds for one reason or another. And oh shoot, today is the start of our tapering support group. I think there's 2 slots left. So if you want to join our tapering support group, go over to my website, angiepeacock.com, and next Tuesday starts the withdrawal support group. There's still about 10 slots left for that. So, all right. Thank you so much, Matt. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.